welcome to this, and this will be my review for the WWE's Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, which will probably get no buys whatsoever. You know, Hell in a Cell in an era where you're really not gonna have blood, you're not gonna have overt violence. Really, just, you know, you can do it once on the pay-per-view, but to do it twice on the pay-per-view, I've always said this, it doesn't work, because you can do it once, you can kind of mask the whole thing about you not having blood and guts and all of that stuff. But to do it twice, just in my opinion, doesn't work. And again, we saw that it didn't work yet again. But anyways, let's get on with the show. And this show really highlighted a lot of the problems in the WWE. It highlighted a lot of the problems over probably the last 6 years in the WWE. I've said this before. The chickens are kind of coming home to roost, because they haven't done a good job of building stars. They've just forgotten about building stars. When guys would get hot, they would yank the carpet out from under them and let them flounder. The fans don't care about guys who aren't established. We had a crowd that was somewhat hot, but only really cared about the main guys and didn't care about anyone that they didn't see as a star and that the WWE told them were not stars. So, again, I think that one of the things WWE is probably going to have to do is going to have to start going to cities, not necessarily good wrestling cities, because it can't even be good wrestling cities anymore. It has to be cities where fans are going to, for things that are good, they're going to be excited about. They're going to be excited about good matches. They're going to be excited about good promos. They're going to be excited about good wrestling, and not just, they're just hot crowds. Because fans are going to have to start being taught that, oh yeah, this guy I cheer for. Oh yeah, this guy, for whatever reason, people are cheering for him, so I need to cheer for him. That sort of thing. Because, the business is based on illusion, and you have to give the fact, you have to give the illusion that these guys are big guys, and when you continually go to these big arenas, to these towns, and not that Dallas is a bad wrestling town, but you have to go to towns where at least the fans are going to go along with what you want to do, to an extent. There's some that won't do it, but the opening match was a very good example where we had Daniel Bryan, The Miz, and John Morrison. The crowd was very much into Miz, which is to be expected. They were kind of into Daniel Bryan, and they were kind of into John Morrison. And as the match went along, they were just kind of like oohing and ahhing, but they weren't getting into the match, and the match was pretty good, and maybe the best match of the night, which is kind of saying something. But they went out there, and these guys did put on a pretty good match. It was very well laid out. It was the stuff that was in the ring was good. There was some good spots. There was lots of good action when they got out of the ring. Again, there was lots of good stuff with them doing submissions and trying different types of submissions. We saw John Morrison do kind of like diving off platforms. We saw Mrs. whatever he is, I can't even think of his name right now, come in and get involved, causing John Morrison the match, which means we'll probably get, I'm hoping out of this we don't get Morrison and Miz again, but we get Daniel Bryan and Morrison again, because when they were in the ring together, they really looked good, and they looked like they could put on some really, really good stuff. Miz, for as good as he is, he's still not that great in the ring, and you have to kind of, get him in there with a guy that can kind of carry him a little bit. Not that it's a bad thing at all, but definitely when Daniel Bryan and John Morrison were kind of interacting with each other, the match was really, really good. And then you throw in Miz, which kind of got people to care about it. This was a good three-way. This is what a three-way really should do in a lot of ways. Even though it had this weird stipulation on it, but it was a really good match, and definitely, I would say, I don't know, it's not something you should go out of your way and see, but it was what it was. Then we got the first Hell in a Cell match. Of course, much like the Elimination Chamber, where they do, the first Elimination Chamber start the show, and then they do, is the main event. The second one's the main event. That's kind of what we got here. So we got Randy Orton versus Sheamus, and given the fact that we only had 6 matches, you need at least 7, maybe 8 matches minimum for a pay-per-view to feel good, in my opinion, and for there to be, even if you give matches good length and all of that, you kind of need that number, not 6. 6 doesn't work, particularly when you don't have Jericho or Punk, you didn't have Christian's hurt, or any of the other guys that are kind of workhorses really on this pay-per-view, so that just doesn't work. But we have Randy Orton versus Sheamus. People know how I feel about Sheamus, and this match was a perfect example of that because this match went on forever. The crowd didn't care at some points, and definitely, I shouldn't say didn't care, but the crowd was definitely in and out of it. They were definitely in it for Orton, not so much of Sheamus. You could kind of tell and compare that to when Cena and Wade Barrett, where the crowd was pretty much into it and was more into it than anything else all night. We did get some good action. This was a good match. It was a pretty good match. I would say, again, depending on what you like and what you don't like, this could have been match of the night. There were definitely 3 matches that were all kind of right there with each other. The opener, this, and then Wade Barrett and John Cena for different reasons. So it's all going to depend on what you like. But this went really long. It gave it enough time for it to be great, but it was not great, and that's unfortunate. And it was just definitely kind of dragged. We got a celebration with Randy Orton at the end after he won, where he got up on the stage or up on the cage, and it was just kind of like, okay, whatever. Stuff. Well, we couldn't get another match. We got to get this. Yeah. So then, not that we didn't have enough on this show, they decided to have a Smackdown segment. Not a Raw segment, a Smackdown segment. Now let me, it is okay sometimes to have a Raw segment on a pay-per-view. You cannot do a Smackdown segment on a pay-per-view. Here's why. You have told fans for 5 years now, 5 years, that SmackDown is the B show. And that if it's not a main guy, if it's not an established talent from, on SmackDown, basically they don't give 2 shits about it, to be blunt. They don't care. You bring out a guy who is still new, and Del Rio, he comes out. Most of the crowd didn't get a big reaction because of that. This was a pay-per-view. They're like, what's going on? He comes out. He talked. They let him. This went on far too long on top of that. The crowd just got out of it. Edge came out. They kind of got into it when Edge came out. Then that brought out Jack Swagger. This all led to the Raw GM, leading to Jack Swagger versus Edge, which should be a pretty good match. And they did go out there and they put on a really good match, I thought. Except the crowd was so dead that the match was just kind of pretty good. The crowd just out being into it. When they went out there and they just did their thing, they gave them time, all this stuff. But again, the crowd has been told, Jack Swagger, who gives a damn, because the one time that they gave a damn about him, WWE pulled the rug out from under him, and then who cares again? And that has to stop. The WWE has to realize when guys get hot and go, because they're at that point now where it can't be like it was, where, oh, well, yeah, the guy's hot, but let's wait and see if he can stay hot. We don't really need him right now. Well, guess what? You don't have Shawn Michaels, and The Undertaker is definitely on his last leg. You don't have Triple H. You need these guys now. You haven't built them up. You've told fans not to care about them, and since they don't care about them, you've told them not to care about them. They don't care about them, and now your business is suffering because of it. Chickens come home to roost because you have done such a horrible job over the last probably 8 years of making new, 6 years of making new stars. Guys that fans wanted to get into, guys that fans wanted to like. You told, no, he's not that type of guy. It's just these guys. These are the guys that we want you to cheer for, and fans stopped caring, and that's part of the problem right now. So we had that. Then we had John Cena versus Wade Barrett. They had a pretty good match. They had a very good match, to be honest. Good storytelling. Went out there. Lots of drama. The crowd was into it for the most part. They went out there. They did their thing, and we did get kind of a screwy ending, but I think most people thought we were going to get a screwy ending, and so John Cena didn't lose cleanly, which is, I think, goes along with the storyline. But Wade Barrett did win. Barrett looked good going over. He looked like, the real deal. They played it up as a big deal as John Cena losing and John Cena having to join Nexus now. They did kind of give it away during the pay-per-view, but I guess you ordered the pay-per-view, so it really doesn't matter. And the fact that, but it was still stupid that they gave it away, by the way. And like I said on Smackdown, as we basically got the same, I think it was the same promo that they aired on Superstars, which basically kind of gave it away, that Cena was going to lose. which, yeah, he lost. So that'll definitely be interesting. I have no faith that they will make it interesting, but could be very interesting. They could do a lot of things with this, and unfortunately, I have so little faith in the WWE creative staff that I don't think we're going to see that. Then we got Michelle McCool versus Natalya as kind of the buffer between that match and the main event, which I don't really think it needed a buffer, but okay, whatever. And this kind of proves a point. Natalya is a pretty good wrestler. Stuck her out there with typical diva, and Michelle McCool. And not Michelle McCool's bad, but she's probably one of the better ones. And they had a pretty good match by diva standards. Probably, even, knockouts in diva standards. They had a pretty good little match. The ending was sucky, but they only gave it 6 minutes. But it kind of proves a point. The WWE needs more women that can actually wrestle, because the reason why, like, for example, Sable got over because Luna went out there, and Luna could work, Sable could just kind of work, and she understood, okay, this is what I can do well, so I will do this well, and Luna will then Luna was like, you do these things well, and I will go out there and I'll make you look like $1 million, and that's what she did. And you need probably, I would say there's more than 10 divas, but if you have 10 divas, you probably need 3 women on the roster. 3 of those 10 need to be really good wrestlers, so they can make the other ones look good, even if they're not, and kind of, make you not see their faults, and like, per se. That's not what we got. Now, so, again, we got a Who's Cares match. They gave it a bad ending with Shoes. Bad memories of Shoes and Nitro, for those of you that are probably too young to remember that. But, yeah, so that's what it was, and so there's another little rant on that. Then we got Kane versus Undertaker with Paul Bearer in a very long, oh my god, this is why we needed another match, because there was no reason for this to go, this went, like 20 minutes, this didn't need to go 20 minutes, this needed to go 10, maybe 15 minutes, maybe if you're pushing, particularly after last month when we saw that, these guys didn't need to be out there for a long stretch of time. And they went out there, and I think this was longer than the last match. Didn't need to be that. This is a storyline-driven match. The match itself could be bad. And this match was just okay, to be honest. And that's bad but not only that, but it dragged. It can be okay as long as it's 10 minutes, and we got what we got, which was Paul Bearer turning on the Undertaker, and we got the light, and we got, the urn getting smashed into Undertaker, and Kane going over, and all of that, and all of the story, and all the pageantry that went along with it. You can do all of that, and do it in like 10 to 15 minutes, and it would have worked so much better. Instead, you ended the pay-per-view with this okay match that went on forever, and dragged forever, and went far too long. I don't know if this was Undertaker's ego saying, like, we gotta go 23 minutes. I don't know if this was, somebody else saying, well, it's the main event of the show, so it's gotta go 23 minutes. I don't give a damn. At some point, you should have looked at the card and said, okay, we need at least 2 more matches on this card, and this match cannot go longer than 15 minutes. That's what they should have done. That's not what we got. We got crap. We got this, and that's not good, and that just shows that the WWE, the people come up with this in WWE are stupid. This is, say what you will about TNA. TNA, at least for the most part, very seldom do we get pay-per-views where they don't have enough matches and they're having to bide for time and all of that. Usually there's too much stuff going on TNA pay-per-views. But at least there's that. We don't have this, where, every once in a while, I guess when Sting and Foley had the belt, they would book these, 30-minute, main event matches, and they sucked too. They weren't very good either. This is, when guys can't go, when The Undertaker right now can't go, then you try to book around it, and you smoke and mirrors, and you try to make it look better than it was, and they didn't even do that. And that's just horrible and inexcusable. Pay-per-view, honestly, could have been extremely good. But it wasn't. And maybe if they had added a couple of other matches, maybe if they, if the 2 Hell in the Cells hadn't been so long, whatever. if you look at the ratings I gave, everything, you probably got to go, wow, that doesn't look so bad. Except that the main event, was not acceptable for a main event at any rate, and went too long. If it was a short main event and it was just not acceptable, that'd have been okay if we would have had better stuff up on top. And we did have. We had, Miz and Morrison was pretty good. Orton and Sheamus should have been far better than it was, but it wasn't. Cena and Barrett, I think they delivered. And it's unfortunate that those two matches went out and did what they were supposed to do. And really, Edge and Swagger were pretty much stuck out there and not any fault of their own, because the crowd pretty much didn't care by the point. Because you get this big, long segment that was just horrible. Because it's on a pay-per-view, and it's a guy that most of the fans don't know. And I know you're probably trying to get it so that people will care about him, but you do that on television. You don't do that on the pay-per-view. People have a different mentality when they go to watch a pay-per-view than they go to watch Raw or Smackdown. I am sorry. We had a women's match that could have been good, but you ended it in a screwjob ending. It just wasn't a good pay-per-view, and it came off that way because you didn't have enough matches and you underbooked it. And again, this is just bad stuff. I mean, this like I said, individually, it probably looks much better than it came across. It came across very just, throughout the whole thing, particularly, since, the Orton and Sheamus match just dragged, took a lot out of me, even though it was good. But for 23 minutes, it should be freaking good. I mean, at the bare minimum, it should be, it should be a great match at that length. Same thing with the main event. As much time as you give it, that should be a great match. And there was no way, I don't know anyone who thought that was going to be a great match with the shape Undertaker is in and Kane. That's just not going to happen. I don't get it. I don't get it. Anyways, with that, I'm out. Have a good one.